Bonjour. Okay, new frame going on. It's the flag of Canada. The unfortunate thing about using these flags as a frame is that you often miss what's in the middle of the flag. And in the middle of the Canadian flag, as I'm sure most of you are aware, is a big old maple leaf. So French is one of the official languages of Canada. Like other countries that aren't in Europe, the reason for French being one of the official languages of Canada is colonialism. You probably have heard about Quebec. Some of you may pronounce it Quebec. It's a province in Canada where almost everyone, that could be a lie. There's a huge portion of French-speaking people in Quebec and in Canada in general. Many people speaking French as their first language and not English. But many people in Quebec are bilingual, purely bilingual, have always been speaking both English and French. Okay, so in today's video, we are talking about the past tense of the verb aller. So aller in the passé composé. It is a little different than how we know to do the passé composé. So for a second, think about how we form the passé composé the way you know. Okay, there are two words, right? A helping verb and a past participle. The helping verb has been the present tense of avoir, and the past participle is either, following one of those patterns that from forever ago, or it's an irregular past participle that you've just had to memorize. But the helping verb has always been avoir. So I'm going to show you some sentences that have the verb aller, which means to go, in the passé composé. I want you to just look at them and see what you notice about them. What seems maybe different, what seems the same, what are you not expecting, what looks fine. Okay, so samedi, Eric est allé au musée. On Saturday, Eric went to the museum. Anne et Alice sont allées à une fête. Anne and Alice went to a party. Nope. Okay, what do you notice? There are probably two things that should stand out to you about these two sentences and what is different about them. So let's start with the things that are the same. Okay, we've still got two words, like we expect. Still got two words like we expect. Passé composé always has two words. Now, we know so far that the helping verb has been avoir. But this, a and sont, are not avoir. These are the conjugated forms of être for these subjects. Right? Okay, so looks like maybe our helping verb is going to be être when we are using aller in the passé composé. Then, what do we notice about the past participle? So we know that ER verbs, to make the past participle, you drop the ER and add E acute. So this follows that pattern just fine, right? So the only thing weird about this sentence, Eric est allé au musée, is that our helping verb is être. But if we look at this sentence, Anne et Alice sont allées à une fête, something a little weird going on with our past participle, right? So we've got A-L-L-E acute, like we would expect. We've also got an extra E and an S. Where do you think this E and S are coming from? Take a moment. Where could they be coming from? You probably have guessed that they are coming from our subject, right? Anne and Alice, feminine and plural. So in adjectives that need to be feminine and plural, we generally will add an E and an S. That's exactly what's happened here, but this is a past participle, not an adjective. So we have made our past participle agree in number and gender with our subject. Interesting. So bottom line is that the passé composé of aller is formed with être according to the following pattern. The present tense of être plus the past participle. Okay, so aller is just a little strange. So the helping verb, instead of being avoir, will be the present tense of être, and then our past participle we'll talk about. So the past participle doesn't only have to agree with a feminine plural subject, it has to agree with every subject. So you can see here, the past participle takes endings to agree with the subject. The good news is you already know these endings. A feminine subject will add an E to the past participle. A plural subject will add an S to the past participle. And a feminine plural subject will add an ES. Let's take a look. So if I wanted to say I went, je suis allé. All right? And now the E here is in parentheses just because depending on the gender of I, you may or may not need to add an E. So if I were saying I went, I would add an E because I am a woman. Je suis allé, I went. Okay, same thing with tu. You went. Tu es allé. Added an E optionally in case the you you're speaking to is a woman. Then we've got il est allé. All right, our subject is singular and masculine, so we don't have to add anything to the past participle. Elle est allée. All right, our subject is singular and feminine, so we just add an E. Elle est allée. Nous sommes allés. Okay, so we went. Here, we is always plural, so you have to add an S. But if the we you're talking about is all women, so if it's me and my mom and my grandma, we, then I would add an E as well, because that would be plural and feminine. Vous êtes allé? We're missing an accent on et, right? There should be a circumflex on top of this E. I'll fix that later. Vous êtes allé? Now here, sometimes vous, and this should also have an E in parentheses. We'll get there. Sometimes vous is singular and sometimes vous is plural. Vous can either be the formal way to address someone. So if you were speaking to me in French, you would probably say you, vous. You would say vous. So in those cases, we would not add an S to the past participle. However, vous can also mean you all, like a plural you. In those cases, we would add an S. Now, if you were speaking to me and you were writing out the sentence, like, Miss Harris, where did you go this weekend? You would also add an E. Vous êtes allé, E acute, E. Just like if you were speaking to a woman here, but it's just with vous instead. And then, ils sont allés. Our subject is masculine and plural, so we just add an S. And then, elles sont allées. Our subject is feminine and plural, so we add an E and an S. Now, like how it's important that you can conjugate avoir as the helping verb, it is now important that you can also always conjugate être. You should already know how to do this, but I recognize that without practice, some of you forget how. So make sure you have reviewed and you know how to conjugate être consistently so that you can successfully have the helping verb for aller in the passé composé. Let's take a look at your practice. This passé composé of the verb aller is the bulk of your 2.7 quiz, so you have a slightly longer practice than usual because I want to make sure you have it nailed down. So, let's see, yes. So for the first section, a group of friends spent the week in Paris. Say where they each went using the passé composé of aller. So this first section is just straight, look at the subject, and then put in, basically right off this slide, aller in the passé composé. So we can see here, Nathalie is a woman, so our subject is singular and feminine. So we would just have to write est allée. Just this right here, est allée. She went. And you'll do the same thing, looking at each subject to decide, okay, what is the number and gender? How am I going to conjugate être, and then what am I going to do to my past participle to make it agree. Now, this next section is really important. The bulk of your quiz is exactly almost like this section. Okay, so you're describing what the following people did last weekend by completing the first sentence with the passé composé of the verb in parentheses, then saying where each one went using the passé composé of aller and a logical expression from the box. Okay, so the verbs you need to use are in parentheses, so a little less thinking than normal. So our first one here is acheter. Acheter is just a normal regular verb, so our helping verb is going to be avoir. So Mélanie a, conjugating avoir for singular, feminine, third person subject. And then acheter, drop the er, add e acute to make the past participle. Acheter des fruits. Mélanie a acheté des fruits. Melanie bought some fruit. Next sentence, we're using the passé composé of aller, so our helping verb has to be être. Elle est, then our past participle aller, which has an extra e in order to agree with the subject. Au supermarché. So this part, au supermarché, you would just be looking, where would she buy fruit? Oh, the supermarket. And there is a word bank for those. So you only need to use this word bank for the second sentence in each of these, right? Only the one that says aller will you need to try to find a location where they are going or where they went. And that's it. There is a key at the bottom for the first section, but I will add a key for the second section as well. I'll go ahead and do that before I post this because it is important that you know what you're doing. And that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. I know this is kind of a weird new wrinkle in the passé composé, but it's super logical, right? You're just, if my verb is aller, then I need to use être instead of avoir, and I need to make my past participle agree. If you have any questions, let me know. If you feel like you need extra practice, also let me know, and I will post that for you. Au revoir!